What happens when a Hollywood legend walks into a daytime talk show expecting celebration and walks out in the middle of chaos? This is the story of how one of the most respected women in television history, Marla Gibbs, found herself at the center of a storm that nobody saw coming. The day began like any other taping of The Real. The audience buzzed with excitement. The cameras rolled and the hosts, Garcelle Beauvais and Jeannie Mai, were ready for what was supposed to be a warm, nostalgic chat with a true icon, Marla Gibbs, the woman who defined an era with the Jeffersons and 227, walked out to thunderous applause. The crowd rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, celebrating a woman whose career had opened doors for generations. She smiled that same gracious smile she's carried for decades, waving as she took her seat. The set was bright, the mood was cheerful. Garcelle welcomed her with open arms, telling her how much she meant to so many black actresses who came after her. Jeannie complimented her timeless energy, her grace, her wit. Everyone expected this to be one of those feel-good interviews that leaves viewers inspired. At first, it was exactly that. Marla shared stories about working with Sherman Hemsley, how the Jeffersons changed her life, how 227 gave her a platform to bring authenticity to working class black families on TV. The audience laughed, clapped, and hung on every word. Then Jeannie asked a question that would shift everything. She leaned forward, smiling warmly, and said, "Marla, you've been in this business for decades. What advice would you give to the younger generation of actresses trying to make it today?" For a brief moment, Marla smiled. But something in her expression changed. Her tone softened, but there was weight behind her words. "I'd tell them," she said slowly, "to remember where they came from and never forget who opened the doors before them." The audience nodded politely, but there was something about the way she said it, pointed, deliberate, that made both Garcelle and Jeannie exchange a quick look. Garcelle laughed lightly, trying to keep things positive. "Oh, absolutely. Respecting those who came before us is everything." Marla nodded but didn't stop there. "Sometimes," she continued, "I turn on daytime television, and I wonder if the younger generation really understands the sacrifices that were made so they could sit in those chairs." The air in the studio shifted. The laughter faded. A few audience members looked at each other, unsure if they were witnessing a teachable moment or a confrontation brewing in real time. Jeannie straightened up in her chair. Her smile was polite, but her tone careful. "Are you saying that we, or people like us, have been disrespectful in some way?" Marla didn't flinch. "It's not about any one person," she said. "It's about a culture. A culture where everyone wants to be relatable, trendy, entertaining, but sometimes forgets the foundation this industry was built on. The struggles, the battles, the pioneers who made it possible." Garcelle leaned in, voice calm but firm. "I hear you, and I have nothing but respect for the legends who came before us. I've lived that struggle myself, as a Haitian woman breaking into Hollywood. I know what it means to fight for every role." Marla listened quietly, nodding. But her next words deepened the tension. "Understanding struggle and honoring it," she said, "are two different things. And sometimes the way these shows are structured, all gossip, all entertainment, it takes away from the real conversations we should be having about representation and respect." The silence was heavy now. You could hear the audience breathing. Jeannie spoke up, her tone clipped. "With all due respect, Marla, The Real has always been about real conversations. We've talked about race, gender equality." Marla interrupted softly. "Talking about issues," she said, "and embodying them are not the same thing." Jeannie's eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me?" Marla continued, her tone steady but sharp. "I've seen clips where serious matters were treated like punchlines, where pain became a topic instead of a lesson. That's not respect, that's entertainment." Now Garcelle's composure wavered. "Can you give us an example? Because I don't appreciate vague criticism." Marla didn't hesitate. "A few months ago, there was a discussion about an older black actress. The conversation was dismissive. It focused more on the drama than the dignity of what that woman represented." Jeannie's face hardened. "We aim to show different perspectives in that segment. We never intended to be disrespectful." Marla leaned forward slightly. "Intentions don't erase impact. And as women with influence, you have a responsibility to handle those stories with care, especially when they involve the people who paved the way. The back and forth grew sharper. Garcelle tried to stay composed. We can't please everyone, and if we're going to have real conversations, not everyone will agree with our takes. That's the risk of being honest on television. Marla's tone cooled even further. You asked for honesty, she said, and I gave it. If honesty feels like an attack, maybe that says something about how truth is received in this space. The studio went still. The crew shifted nervously behind the cameras. Jeannie shot Garcelle a look, part disbelief, part warning. Garcelle took a deep breath. I respect your opinion, Marla, but I disagree with how you're painting us. We've had countless legends on this show, people who felt celebrated and respected. Marla responded without blinking. Just because some feel respected doesn't mean all are treated that way. One good moment doesn't excuse the bad ones. Jeannie's patience was unraveling. With all due respect, it feels like you came here with an agenda. If you have such strong negative feelings about the real, maybe you shouldn't have come at all. The words hit the air like a slap. Marla's eyes narrowed. I came because I was invited, and because I believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, this conversation is confirming my concerns. The crowd gasped softly. Garcelle tried to intervene. That's unfair. You're turning what should have been a celebration into something else. Marla shook her head. When someone older offers perspective, you call it an attack. That's the problem. We used to listen, reflect, and grow. Now criticism is met with defensiveness. Jeannie leaned forward, her voice rising. Times have changed. Being older doesn't mean you can talk down to people. Respect goes both ways. Marla's expression didn't move. I haven't talked down to anyone. I've spoken truthfully. If that's too much for you, perhaps you're not ready for honest dialogue. The studio was frozen. Every camera locked on them. The tension was electric. Garcelle exhaled slowly. There's a difference between honesty and humiliation. You could have reached out privately if you felt this way. Marla's response was quick. I did, months ago. After that segment, I reached out through a contact to speak with your producers. I never heard back. The hosts looked stunned. Jeannie blinked. You reached out? Yes, Marla said. I wanted to have a real conversation about how these topics were handled. I was ignored. So now we're here. Garcelle looked genuinely shocked. I never received any message. If I had, I would have responded. Marla shrugged. Whether you knew or not, it speaks to a bigger issue. How veterans are dismissed until we force our way into the conversation. Jeannie shook her head. You can't hold us accountable for something we never knew about. This feels like an ambush. Marla's voice was steady. It's not an ambush. You asked me a question. I answered it truthfully. The air crackled. Neither woman wanted to back down. Garcelle softened her tone. Look, I understand your frustration. Miscommunication happens. Maybe we can continue this conversation off camera? Marla gave her a long, measured look. That's the problem. Too many important conversations happen off camera, behind closed doors where they can be controlled and forgotten. Real change requires public discomfort. Jeannie crossed her arms. There's a difference between productive discomfort and this, unproductive conflict. You're not helping anyone right now, Marla. You're just grandstanding. For the first time, Marla's voice rose. Grandstanding? No, dear. I've spent my life fighting for representation. If I look passionate, it's because I care. You may see conflict, I see truth being spoken. Garcelle interjected, trying to calm the storm. You're being unfair. We have every right to defend ourselves. Marla countered immediately. And I have every right to speak my mind after 50 years in this business. I've earned that right. Jeannie's tone was icy. Being a legend doesn't give anyone a free pass to disrespect others. Marla stood up. The audience gasped. I'm not disrespecting anyone, she said. But I won't sit here while you twist my words to protect your egos. If you can't handle hard truths, maybe you're in the wrong business. The studio was dead silent. Garcelle stood too, her voice low but firm. Walking out won't prove your point. I'm not walking out, Marla said. I'm standing up because I'm tired of shrinking to make others comfortable. Jeannie's arms folded tightly across her chest. You're being dramatic. Marla turned sharply toward her, and dismissing a woman as dramatic. When she speaks truth, that's a classic deflection. I expected better from women who claim to empower others. The words landed like a punch. Garcelle's face reddened. You've crossed a line. Don't question our commitment to uplifting women. Marla's reply was cold, calm, surgical. Commitment isn't what you say, it's what you do. And right now, your actions are speaking louder than any slogan. Offstage, producers began to move closer, whispering frantically into headsets. The tension had spilled beyond the stage. It was now a full-blown emergency. One producer gestured subtly toward Marla, suggesting a break. Marla noticed. "Don't try to silence me," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the room. "I've said what I needed to say." Garcelle looked toward the crew, then back at Marla. "Maybe we should take a break, sort this out privately." "There's nothing to sort out," Marla replied. "You've shown me exactly what I needed to see." Jeannie stood abruptly. "Then maybe you should leave." "This isn't helping anyone." Marla turned to her, eyes steady. "I came here to celebrate my career and discuss the future of this industry. But instead, I found the same defensiveness and ego that hold us back." "I'm disappointed but not surprised." Garcelle's voice trembled slightly. "The only thing revealed, here is your willingness to create drama instead of dialogue." Marla's eyes hardened. "Calling out mediocrity isn't drama. It's accountability. Women like me fought for these platforms. To exist and watching them used for gossip instead of growth is heartbreaking." Jeannie clenched her jaw. "We've had important conversations on this show. You're cherry-picking one moment and using it to tear us down." Marla shot back instantly. "Doing good work sometimes doesn't excuse doing harm elsewhere." The producer stepped closer now, speaking softly but firmly. "Ms. Gibbs, your car is ready if you'd like to leave." Marla turned to him, eyes flashing. "I don't need to be escorted. I've done nothing wrong," Garcelle asked, her voice tight. "Then why agree to come if you felt this way about us?" Marla sighed deeply. "Because I hoped I was wrong. I hoped this show was deeper than I thought. But today proved me right." Jeannie's response was cutting. "Millions of viewers love this show. They find value in it every single day." Marla nodded slowly. "Popularity is not the same as quality. Making people feel good is not the same as making them think." The crowd stirred. Some stood and applauded her words. Others shouted in defense of the hosts. The studio had become a battleground of opinions. Producers moved quickly, signaling for a commercial break. Security appeared near the side of the stage, just in case. Marla adjusted her jacket, calm amid the chaos. She looked at both women, two hosts who had built their own careers in an industry she once helped shape, and said quietly, "You asked for advice, I gave it. The lesson here isn't about me. It's about whether you can take what you dish out and grow from it." Garcelle's expression softened just for a second. Maybe regret, maybe exhaustion. "I do appreciate everything you've done for this industry. I truly do. I just wish today had gone differently." Marla nodded once. "So do I." She turned to the audience, gave a small wave, and walked off stage under the harsh studio lights, not escorted, not rushed, just dignified. As the door closed behind her, the audience remained in stunned silence. Jeannie exhaled shakily, rubbing her temples. "Well," she muttered, "that was something." Garcelle stared at the empty chair where Marla had been sitting. "That was history," she said quietly. Because whether you agreed with her or not, one thing was undeniable. In a world obsessed with being liked, Marla Gibbs had once again reminded everyone what it meant to be real.